We're the Kings, and this is our bike rental business analysis.
So I'm Hunter Hahn. I did the decision trees and the recommendations.
I'm Carlos Lopez Rosario. I worked on the business report and then the data visualization.
I'm Geneve Nunn, and I worked on the business report and analyzing data.
I'm Dylan Robson, and I worked on the Tableau and data visualization of the data.
I'm William Sample, and I worked on the cluster analysis.
So first we had to understand the business and its data. So in the bike rental business, there's been a lot of substantial growth, and it's encouraged companies to analyze their data to find out what factors may be influencing the day-to-day use of their bikes by the public. For the most part, the factors consist of environmental occurrences like the weather. Along with that is the season, the day, time of day, and the type of day. To begin analyzing our data, we made some variables to help us understand it. First is the demand type, which discovers the days where bike rentals are high or low. Then the day of week, which discovers which days of the week are most popular for bike rentals. And then the months, which tells which months are most popular for bike rentals.
And so I ran the decision trees for both models, the logistic regressions as well, and found that the average squared error for both models was lower with the logistic regression. So these regressions were better than the decision trees at figuring out the data. And here in the slides, we have both of the best and worst nodes for both of the decision trees.
Here's our cluster analysis segments. You can see that segment 6 was our largest. And we decided to use variables with a normal distribution for the cluster analysis. So we ended up using atemp, which was what the temperature actually felt like, humidity, temperature, and wind speed. And the clusters, as you can tell from the pie chart, didn't have much variance in size, but segment 6 was the largest, followed by 4, 3, 1, 2, and lastly 5. And segment 6 had temperature and what the temperature feels like higher than average, along with humidity higher than average, and wind speed was about average.
If we now take a look at the visualization of the data, we can see that on the left side of your screen, seasonal demand is representing, with circles and colors being the main representation of the seasonal demand data visualization portion. And from what we can tell, fall time seems to be the largest of all the circles, this being or representing that the average count of bike rentals is at its peak within the fall time and at its lowest in the springtime. Then if we take a look right below the seasonal demand graphic, you can see that total rentals based on type of weather graph shows that 1 representing a more ideal weather condition and 4 being the worst weather condition. 1 shows the highest or the peak volume of bike rentals, and then it slowly, or actually not slowly, dramatically drops down after, which we did assume that that would be the case, with 4 being at its lowest and 4 representing the worst weather conditions.
On the right hand of your screen, you have average rentals during the week, where you have 7 lines, each color representing a different day. And at the bottom, you have the time, so by hour, starting from midnight all the way up until midnight the next day. And as you can see, the peaks tend to be when people go into work and people leave work. And then the green and yellow lines tend to represent the days where that's not true. And the peaks tend to be in the middle of the day rather than in the beginning and end of the workday. Then in the bottom right, you have workday versus holiday. And what we can tell is that the average rentals for bikes during holidays and work days and non-working days that are not holidays tend to all be about the same, and it doesn't have an influence on how many bikes get rented.
So in conclusion, we have some recommendations based on all of this analysis. we should advertise our product when weather conditions are favorable, and we want to know things like when the weather, temperature, and wind speed are, so we can further distribute our bikes. Using this data, we'll be able to help maximize our profits on days with a good climate and minimize losses on days where the climate is not so good.